What is a quantum computer? Well, it's simple. Our iPhones, the laptops we're talking on right now, recording the show with, they all use this bit system, which means I have a heads and I have a tails. And if I have that bit sitting on a two-dimensional surface, think of it that way. If it's heads up, it's a 1. If it's tails up, it's a 0, right? And so on that plane, it can only be one of those two things. So now take that same coin and think of a qubit as a block sphere, right? Think of it as a particle you've popped off, and it's a sphere. So if it's pointing directly up, it's a 1. If it's pointing directly down, it's a 0, depending on how they've designed the system or whatever. And so what does that mean? That means we take the same coin, we flip it in the air. And when we're flipping it in the air like that, is it a 1 or a 0 when you see it spinning? And the answer is you don't know. It's in a superposition of a probability of 1 or 0. And until we stop it and measure it, we don't know what it is.
Welcome to the Lone Star Play Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. Join me and a famous guest every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We discuss their career, life, food, Texas, and everything in between. Let's get started. All right, and welcome to another great episode of the Lone Star Play Podcast. You may have noticed, bam, simplified the studio, actually switched it all up, painted a whole wall, put this behind me, brought in the desk, just cleaned it up, made it simple, Texas flag, bam, I love it, hope you love it. All right, so excited to introduce this episode. I'm going to keep it short because it's kind of a long episode, sort of, an hour and 20 minutes or so. Anyway, my guest today is Whurley, all right, so like Prince or Madonna, that's what he goes by, Whurley. So he is a tech investor and very popular for Strange Works and Chaotic Moon Studios, amongst other things. Okay, works with physicists, super smart. The guy's a genius. This is like what it was talking to Matt Mullenweg, right, from WordPress. Whew, we had some, very interesting conversation. I love this podcast. I could have done this. I could do this podcast every week, to be honest with you. I hope to have him on again and we can talk more about stuff, or have him on as a regular, because this was so much fun to just sort of discuss these things, these big questions, right? So we talked about quantum computing. He broke that down. He's got a book called Quantum Computing for Babies. So you check that out. It's super awesome. So he also talked about interplanetary species, right? Should we go to Mars? Should we terraform it? Should we use those resources here on Earth instead? So we got into that discussion. We got into the discussion, are we in a simulation, right? Is this real? Seems real to me. We also talked about time travel. Bam, Back to the Future, Marty McFly. We got down into it. It was great. That was a really fun part of the conversation. We also talked about, AI, the morality of AI and what that means, right, moving forward. We broke down Elon Musk and SpaceX and, again, all just sorts of just crazy, conversation. We also talked about flat Earth and conspiracy theories such as those and what that means and how it impacts us, and disinformation and, those sort of things. Again, fascinating conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Before we get to it, guys, make sure to check us out on social media. Go to Texas Real Food, follow us there, and keep track. We're going to be having our own social media accounts very soon. Keep hold. I'll let you guys know when that's going to happen. But for now, keep going to Texas Real Food and find us there. You can also go to YouTube, Texas Real Food, find the Lone Star Play podcast there. Again, we're presented by Texas Real Food, so that's where all our social media is. And, subscribe, follow, go to, Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, right, Spotify, all those things for the podcast. You subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review. That'd be awesome. And, for any and all questions, and nothing will ever change about this, our website, thelonestarplay.com. So no matter what happens, you can always go there and find out everything that's happening. We've got all kinds of great episodes coming out, and, just very excited about this one. So, anyway, enough for me talking. Boom, here's the conversation. Whurley, quantum computing. Excited to talk to you, man. To be honest with you, I've been reading about you. so many interesting things about you and so many interesting things you've done way beyond my mental capacity. And I love things like that. I love things I can't understand. I don't know what the hell it is, but tell me more, right? Like I like things like that. So, you've been involved in a lot of, just technology stuff and right. I hear quantum and I lose it. I just like, what is quantum? What does that mean? It's just,
I'm going to start to hear quantum and I'm going to lose it. Um, so, we'll see. Yeah. So tell me the format. What do we want to do?
we just talk. We just talk like a, Joe Rogan podcast, for instance. I don't know if you've heard that podcast before.
Yeah.
Right. Just a conversation as if we were having a meal. I know we're not technically having a meal.
We have to redo it. My only thing is we have to redo it at some point where we can have a meal.
100%. Yes, and yes. Which is what we did pre-COVID. We would meet in person, do the podcast, and I would order in food. We'd eat. It was.
I feel so bad because COVID hasn't really affected us at all, and it's been it's worked out great for us. And I feel this weird like guilt of like friends who are like, I'm laying off 50%, and my business is out, and nobody can get any work done, and it's like, wow, I feel bad for them.
Oh, damn. Well, that's great for you, though. I've talked to other people the same thing. They feel that same guilt you're feeling of.
Yeah, because it's like if things are going good and everything's falling to shit around you, you kind of, unless you're just a horrible person, you kind of are like, I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah. No, better. Actually, that's better, right? It's better that people are doing good because then if all of us were in the shit, it would be really bad. So I'm happy when I hear people are doing good. Or is it because your business was already sort of like remote and?
No, I mean the joke is, we had 10 guys on their headphones jamming out to music, writing code, on the cloud and chatting in Slack in the office, and then COVID hit. Now we have 10 guys, the headphones on, jam out the music, writing the code on the cloud in Slack from home. So, and we have our CTO lives in Wimberley. And one of my main physicists lives in San Antonio. So we just returned like an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 to their day of not driving to the office. So, productivity went the opposite way. It went up, which is kind of awesome.
You're like, guys, we're going to have a pandemic every year. Okay, this is how we're going to improve.
No, we definitely don't want a pandemic every year.
Of course.
Because while that's happening, my home life and everything else is completely screwed by COVID.
That's interesting. So no matter, even if, the guilt, right? You were feeling my business going good. There is still some aspect of your life that's affected by COVID then.
Of course. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How could there not be?
That's true. How could there not be? Absolutely. It has been such a crazy, especially at the beginning, right? You just didn't know how long this was going to last. So you just said, well, this will probably be a couple of months. Who knows? Then the information really starts to come out like, okay, this is.
Well, yeah, they just extended the stay at home in Austin, right, to December 15th. And you're just like, whoa, that's crazy.
Totally crazy. And I remember a couple days before they canceled South by telling, everyone I work with, the team behind the podcast, right? Because they are actually in England, actually. So everybody was flying over for South by, and I remember telling them, they're not going to cancel South by, guys. Like, I've been here, X amount of years. I'm from Texas. I said, they've never canceled South. There's just no way.
It was heartbreaking. It was going to be the launch of our product, right? So we started the company in 2018. Fast forward, released a beta at South by in 2019. Fast forward, we were going to release the product at South by 2020. So so what that meant is when we lost South by as a venue, which is like, that's our place, right? We launched Chaotic Moon there. We launched Honest Dollar there. Like, that's kind of my little shtick, right? and when we lost South by for the launch of the product, well, then what do we have to look at? Other conferences. Oh, well, guess what? They're all canceled. So now what are you looking at? Virtual events. So now you're like, okay, well, we'll probably need to do it around a quantum event. And so it's like the quantum events are happening every month, right? So now here it is, September, and hopefully, I think we've all decided that if a few more things come together, we'll launch it in an event that's coming up around the 16th, or maybe we'll hold it again, right? But it just threw it off because we had this great South by rhythm. I love Euphorist. I love everyone at South by. I love everything they do. I, like you, have been going forever. And, my immediate worry was, a worry about the economy locally, the effects that's going to have on Austin's economy. We got a lot of bars and restaurants. Some of them, they make a good deal of their cash to take them through the droughts during things like South by,
Yes.
especially at South by. And so I was worried about that and all. And then, I wasn't really worried about the product launch because we're very different startup. We're not like trying to go to 100 people or have an office where you're like, oh my God, did you see the digital display they built? Like, we don't care about, we're just sitting writing code. So I wasn't really worried about the product launch. It was a little disappointing. But then I found out what a pain it was going to be to find the right venue to try to make an announcement. And that was like, wow, you don't realize the infrastructure of something like South by, the connectivity, all the reporters in Academy, this, how many interviews were you probably going to do during South by with people from around the world?
Yeah.
And now you don't have them.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, okay, I can still try to do this. But then, like you said, you got a team in England. Now the people aren't here. So now you're doing it on schedule. I mean, I did a virtual event yesterday for the IEEE. And I mean, I did multiple yesterday, but the one for the IEEE had myself, a speaker from Singapore, and a speaker from Israel. So that thing happened at 3 o'clock our time. It's like 4 a.m. or something in Singapore, right? It's like almost midnight when we finished in Israel. And it's like, so good news, you can get people to easier accept this format and do stuff. Bad news, you're like, oh, it goes global. And it's like, right. But then all of a sudden it's like, I mean, like the one poor guy looked like he was going to pass out. It's just like, it's 4 a.m. And they're asking him technical quantum questions. Like, so quantum, tell us about the whatever. And he's just like, oh my God. And he did great. He's a good friend of mine, Joe Fitzsimmons. He has a whatever co-opetition, whatever you want to call it, company in Singapore. Super, super nice guy. But I mean, I could just look and be like, holy shit, it's in the middle of the night for this poor guy to do this 30-minute thing where people are barraging you with these questions that, you need to be all there to answer you. And he handled it brilliantly. But, that's the kind of thing you're seeing.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, yeah, completely agree with that. You're right. Just, just a wrench in the wheel, the biggest wrench in the biggest wheel. That's what happened.
For us, I mean, you think about it, it wasn't a big change. So in quantum, you're talking about 100 people worldwide is the number I think we've all agreed to say. Because I used to be like, ooh, that sounds so small. I'm going to say it's a couple hundred people. But when we were on the event yesterday, kind of the three quantum founders that were on this interview, we were all like, it's probably about 100 people that actually can even remotely touch this stuff worldwide that have any value. And that's what I'm trying to change as a company. But because of that, the company started by running like the first week, we had video conferences in South Africa, in Australia, in France, Germany, Japan, China, whatever. And so that change and taking advantage of that opportunity of like now people accept this format, maybe you start doing things on a more global scale. We were kind of already in the zone on that, right? Like we're talking to Delft and we're talking to CERN and we're talking to this and that. And so it didn't super change for us, which has been the weirdest thing. I think this is the weirdest startup situation I've ever been in, not because of COVID, but because of you talk to investors, people want updates. They're like, what's happening? You're like, I don't know. It's great. Like everything's fine. And it's like, like my kids weren't in school for 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure my wife's going to murder me. But outside of that, like work is great. As long as my wife doesn't kill me, your investment's going to pay off really well.
You should be calling my wife and talk, call.
Yeah, you should be asking her, like, do you plan on murdering him because he's working 15 hours at the office straight and you're stuck at home with a 2 and 3-year-old? Well, no, sorry, 3 and 4-year-old now.
Oh gosh. Oh man. Yeah, that's a whole.
My 3-year-old the other day just said, shit. I just try to not say anything.
He's been saying
could be my fault, could be her fault. I don't know. Maybe it's a nanny. Who knows? But we're just gonna kind of. I've decided that I have a new opinion on cursing in children. So I think the thing is we overreact to kids saying curse words, and what we should do is we should be focused on teaching them it's just a word, but sometimes it's not appropriate. Like there's an appropriate place for words. And I because it's like they're going to learn all the curse words. It's how you and I curse so much, right? Like, I mean, like no parent has ever been successful in like, well, they're not going to hear any of that profanity, right? Like, it's just not the way anything
I
works.
love it, man. That's hilarious. Well, look, I do want to, and again, look, you're gonna have to forgive me for if some of my questions sound ignorant. Okay, they're just coming from a place of curiosity. Okay, and I'm trying to help my listeners. I'm assuming all my listeners are somewhat like me in the sense that we don't know some of this stuff that people come on for. So let's break down just quick. What does quantum, right? Does somebody that has no idea, right? What does quantum mean, and how do you work with it?
So I'm going to slip out of frame and get a prop
I like it.
because we I think.
I'm all visual, so this is great.
All right, I got all my props. Sorry, I forgot we were going to actually have to talk about work stuff. I thought it was just going to be fun,
It is too.
talking about food. I thought we were going to be in person having lunch. So this is completely not any of my expectation. All right, so let's take this point, right? So 1927, Fifth Solvay Conference, Einstein and Schrodinger and all the famous physicists that you hear about that have been popularized, they get together and the whole quantum mechanics thing comes into play, right? Super, very condensed version. Years and years and years later, 55 years roughly, Richard Feynman and the team decide that you could use a particle as a bit in a computer, okay? Theoretically. All right, fast forward, it's like 2006, 2007, you get your first couple of machines in that kind of range. And there, MIT did one, before that there was one, but it's just real, it's not going anywhere. And then the reason I got excited, the reason I think your listeners and everybody should be excited is 2017, you go from 17 qubits to 2050 up, to 72 and into the 100 range. So there's this obvious long time and then kind of an inflection point. So what does that mean? What is a quantum computer? Well, it's simple. Our iPhones, the laptops we're talking on right now, recording the show with, they all use this bit system, which means I have a heads and I have a tails. And if I have that bit sitting on a two-dimensional surface, think of it that way. If it's heads up, it's a 1. If it's tails up, it's a 0, right? And so on that plane, it can only be one of those two things. So now take that same coin and think of a qubit as a Bloch sphere, right? Think of it as a particle you've popped off, and it's a sphere. So if it's pointing directly up, it's a 1. If it's pointing directly down, it's a 0, depending on how they've designed the system or whatever. And so what does that mean? That means we take that same coin, we flip it in the air. And when we're flipping it in the air like that, is it a 1 or a 0 when you see it spinning? And the answer is you don't know. It's in a superposition of a probability of 1 or 0. And until we stop it and measure it, we don't know what it is, right? Wow. And so when you think about it that way, you can take it, this kind of very complicated subject, and make it a little bit more understanding, because you're like, okay, that means that a bit has so many states. You have a 4-bit system, and here's how many outcomes you can have, and it can be in one of those positions at one time. But with a qubit, you can have every time we add a bit, we get 2 to the n the number of bits, and it can be in multiple states or all of the states at the same time. And so then we measure it, that state collapses, and you get an answer that ends up being a 1 or 0. But how you got to that answer means you can go over potentially mass amounts of data faster and very complicated calculations, and they're not going to be good for everything. Quantum computers are not here to replace classical computers. The way I like to think about it is this.
Okay.
It used to take 6 weeks, several months maybe, to cross from New York to San Francisco. Okay? 100%. Or for your viewers, New York to San Francisco. and when you look at that, most of your party died. Maybe you had to eat somebody along the way. It was weird, right? And then the train came along, and it took a week to do that trip. But no matter how far you go, eventually you reach an ocean, right? And so what comes into play? Air travel. So air travel didn't replace train travel. It augmented it for doing a thing that was far more complex, right? Flight is way more complex than, there's wheels on rails.
Sure.
But it served the same purpose, which is it got us to a point. And the point we want to get to is there's a whole class of problems, environmental problems, health-related problems, drug discovery, everything in material sciences to go to Mars. Elon wants to go to Mars. It's like, well, there's gonna be a lot of stuff we got to build to get there, right? And this is why, space programs and deep tech is so important to the world, right? We don't think about the Apollo missions and then, all the stuff that we got from that, right, that we use today. But when you think about those problems, they're problems in where the evaluation time goes, you add a few variables, the evaluation time soars. So a classic example is traveling salesperson people like to use, right? It's, I don't think the best example, but for the purpose of the listeners and us, people who aren't quantum physicists, we will get it, right? And that's that we want to go to 14 cities, you and I in Texas. We use my laptop and we calculate all the variables, the possible routes. It takes about 1,600 seconds. Now we want to go to 22 cities, a difference of only 8. But that same laptop would take 2,000 years. And if we went to 28 cities, it would take longer than the time of the known universe. So it's not that computers can't solve some of these problems. It's that it would take tens, dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions of years for you to get to an answer. And that answer may not be right. So think of quantum computing being faster, not like making this video play on the internet smoother or, playing your video game faster, but think of it for that one very specific case, which is there's only certain problems it will be good for, but those problems happen to be things that will completely change the human condition and humanity in general, right? So they're very important.
Yes.
Does that help? A little bit long-winded, but hopefully that's. And the short version is go buy Quantum Computing for Babies. And you can read it. And it starts off with, this is a ball. It can be red or blue. So if you got that, this book can give you the basics and help you understand it.
I'm so glad you made that book. Look, that's exactly, I need every subject laid out like that, like it just.
Well, my co-author on it, Chris Ferries, has a whole series about all kind of subjects. It's amazing. It started as a joke. I was like, hey man, we should do quantum computing for babies, right? And I feel so lucky to have done it because now it's like one of the best-selling books in quantum, and everywhere we go, like we literally go meet customers or go to conferences or even virtually yesterday on the event. People are like, oh, I really like that book. And it's funny now because investors that are interested in it have been buying that book, not because of us or anything. And so often we'll be meeting with investors and like, I have the book. And you're just like, oh, we can send you a free copy if you give us money. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, that's what I would be saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Y'all could have a book just like this, right? Like, exactly. I love it. Oh, that's phenomenal.
I wanted to say to the greatest venture capitalist on earth because I have a Sharpie. Do you have a check?
Yeah. I love it, man. That's awesome. No, it's a great explanation. It's a great way to, to explain it. And look, I'm into technology, science, the universe, the big questions. I watch all kinds of, all podcasts I listen to, the shows I watch that I get, deep dive and rabbit holes about stuff. It's so fascinating to me, but I also understand my limits of what I can understand. I mean, I haven't studied this stuff, so I just, but I love hearing it. That's a great explanation of, what that means and, how it is going to change our world and moving forward. But I hadn't heard the part about like that it won't change our day-to-day, like my laptop or my phone, or I hadn't heard that yet. So I didn't know.
Well, you're going to be a consumer of quantum. That's a great point to make. Why should I care as an individual? Well, you take something like Grover's search algorithm, you think that the way a traditional computer is, it goes kind of line by line through all that data to get the answer. That's why we need to be so fast. Well, a quantum computer would only need the square root of the number of entries to get to the same result. So while you won't have a quantum computer, most likely, at least not for a long time, you might have better Google search results and better things that will be because of quantum computers on a back end that you'll never see, right? So, it'll definitely be something people will be taking advantage of. They'll just be consuming it in a different way. They're not going to be writing algorithms. They're going to be receiving faster, more accurate search results based on algorithms somebody else wrote that a quantum machine went through and categorized the info or things like that. Your drugs will be safer because the drug discovery, you'll be able to map and model molecules better so you can find out, oh, here's actually your DNA and very specific, new, drugs that you can use.
What do you think about, so you mentioned Elon Musk earlier and like going to Mars and, obviously Elon Musk is like just a very special person in my mind of just like, I just can't believe all the things that this guy does. And, I'm blown away by it. Does he use a lot of quantum computing like Tesla? Does
No,
it use
it didn't do anything with it as far as I know. I'd love to do something with them. I mean, like, it, Elon's awesome, and he's always been nice to me. We've met a few times. Nice guy, no matter what you've seen or read or whatever. But just a quick thing. I have kind of some entrepreneurial rules, and I'm not trying to cast any shadow, but SpaceX, 6,000 plus employees, they make that shit work. Like, we often forget there's a bunch of people. It's kind of like that old saying, behind every good man is a good woman or whatever. It's like, well, behind every successful entrepreneur is a team of dozens or hundreds or thousands in that case of people that are making those things happen. And
for sure.
I'm a big advocate of like, that's what's important to me as the team. Like, I could do nothing without the people who work here at Strength, literally, like zip. I mean, probably tie my shoes, definitely can feed myself. Breathing's automatic. Outside of that, it's all up for grabs.
I mean, I completely agree. Obviously, nobody's doing anything by your side. 100% agree. I'd say that about this podcast.
I'd love to see him get into quantum,
But is that part, I guess my bigger question is like, does he need to utilize quantum to get to Mars, right? Is that essential?
Could you get to Mars without quantum? It depends on who you talk to. I'm going to say possibly. Could you get there safer and better if we had some of the material sciences that could be done using quantum computers, things like that? Probably.
Yeah.
Are we going to wait on that on quantum happen to go to Mars? Obviously, it doesn't look like they can wait on anything. So, and that's perfectly fine, by the way. Like, kudos to them. But yeah, I mean, space is dangerous, right? It's like, there's new materials, there's new things, and let's say you get to Mars and you discover new things, to map and model those and simulate those and things, then you may need quantum computing.
So what do you think about the interplanetary sort of idea, right? That we need to, as a species, be on these multiple planets? I mean,
look, I go back and forth, and I was in Oslo, Norway, I guess in last year, 2019, with a lady who's going to be one of the first astronauts from South Africa. Wonderful, wonderful woman. But we had a little debate because I'm like, look, if it's going to cost 20, 30, $50 billion to get to Mars, I think we should take that money and invest in the planet we've fucked up already, frankly, right? Like, imagine if all the environmental projects, all of the social projects, imagine if you took that much money and you put it to there, right? And that's a super Austin hippie thing to say, right? But my point was this, is, I made a joke that I think, it is highly probable that everybody on their first flight dies in the cold vacuum of space, right? Like, it's extremely dangerous journey. And she made an argument that was very well put, very articulate. Love or death, it was about the discoveries we'll get out of that, kind of that Apollo example I gave. 100% no argument against that. But if we start spreading across the universe in the way that you just described, I have to stop and question, are we a virus? Because what a virus does is it goes into a host like Earth, it uses up all the resources, and then it moves on to a new one.
Yeah.
And so if we're not going to take care of the planet we have, and we're not going to fix it, are we a virus? It's totally cool. Maybe we are. Maybe we are the best virus, right? The most accomplished one. But that's kind of where my head goes, is like, hell yeah, I would fly to space tomorrow. Like, literally, Elon could strap me to the side of a SpaceX rocket tomorrow. I want to go to space. I just want to go to orbit, right? I 100% want that experience in my lifetime, and I hope I get it. But, when you talk about, this colonization of the solar system, you have to stop and ask yourself, like, we haven't done a really good job of managing this planet. So I'm kind of wondering what we need, at least some thought into, like, how do we not do to Mars what we've done to Earth? That would be awesome. Because there'll be some resource found there. There'll be some discovery. It'll be a jumping off point to other things. That's kind of where my head goes. And by the way, I don't like that my head goes there, because I love space. I wanted to be an astronaut. I love space. I'll go to space, sign me up. Hell, I might even take that first trip to Mars. I mean, I'm fascinated by all things, explorations in space. We have not done a great job of managing the resources we've been given here where we live now. And I think, man, if you could just do a 1-for-1 grade or something, for every dollar we spend on going to Mars, just spend $1 on the oceans, or freaking that we terraforming our soil here to get it more nutrient dense for food or something. And I'm no environmental expert, but I can think of a million things that, it doesn't take more than a quick, just go to any news page. There's always a story about the weather patterns changing or the this or the something. It's clear, even if you're a climate denier at this point, that like we've done some pretty irreparable damage to the planet.
There's no question. I completely agree. I'll make 2 points here. That I think, I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about this, and he sort of made your point basically of like, why are we going to go to Mars if we could spend that money on fixing our own planet, right? He said, well, if we have the technology to go to Mars and terraform it, why wouldn't we just terraform our own planet, right? Again, and we'd be fine or whatever. And my second point is kind of contradictory to that. Which is also a point I've heard Neil deGrasse Tyson make, which is sort of this cave theory sort of thing of back in the day when humans were, first whatever on the planet, right? Which is don't go outside the cave. You could get hurt, right? Don't go on the other side of that hill.
Well, yeah. Look, that's never.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that work? Does that apply? I don't know. I see.
It's never stopped any real explorer, right? And I think that's the point. Is you have people are different. And so you have people that are explorers, and they're like, we got to get to Mars. And you have people that are environmentalists, and they're like, can we fix this first? And you have people in between. Look, it's a point of contingency, right? There's no problem with that. I just think it'd be nice to,
I think,
both. And if we go to Mars, maybe we find stuff, building to go on that journey that helps fix some of the stuff on Earth, right? That was kind of the argument in Norway. And that's perfectly fine argument. I'd like to see it maybe written down in a plan somewhere, or some kind of like actual collaboration of, hey, we're going to make all these discoveries and building all the stuff we need to get to Mars. And here's how we're going to share them with people to improve things on Earth or whatever, like, a little bit more of a formalized process. Because I also worry about, NASA's participating sort of, but, the private flight sector, whether it's Elon, Bezos, or, Richard, Branson, who's obviously the cooler, hipper of all of those choices. Although Jeff Bezos is jacked now. I don't know if you've seen the pictures.
I've seen him. He is jacked. It looks weird.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, what happened? But he's super jacked. Okay, super jacked. And Elon's super cool. And I watched the Neuralink thing the other day or whatever. It's like Richard Branson is clearly the coolest of billionaires going to space, without a doubt, right? He's like, here's a naked model on my back. Look, I just partied with all these rock stars. Here's that time Prince and I pontificated about the universe or whatever. He's like, yeah, that guy right there. Like, if you have to pick one of those to be like, I wouldn't mind being that guy, it's like, that all sounds great. He basically just seems to run around the world trying to solve problems, and somehow he has a party, and in that party the problem's being solved, and then there's a party to celebrate that being solved. Like, I don't know. It's super awesome.
I saw that Neuralink thing with the pig and everything. I thought it was fascinating, to be honest with you. I heard him talk about it on the Joe Rogan podcast actually a couple years ago, I think, and read in articles about. I guess he's been developing it for years, but that demonstration was definitely interesting for sure. Yeah, I'm curious. What do you think about that? Where do you see that going?
I mean, look, I think the press has a tendency to take things Elon and others are working on and build these crazy futuristic visions. Like, you're not downloading karate into your head.
That's what I did.
Yeah. You're not downloading karate into your head sometime next year. So I think, it's the expectations are not unrealistic. Someday all of that could happen. They're just paraplegics, people who don't have, who have Parkinson's. There's a million things that it's like, why can't we just celebrate, like, wow, Elon's Neuralink could help improve people's lives that have a very, very, deprecated, almost gone life, whether it be moving limbs or doing stuff. I think, hey, 100% credit, full applause for that. And by the way, startups market themselves that way, right? If the press wants to say you can download karate, like, man, who would argue? That's going to get a million more clicks, right?
Yeah.
But I like to keep, like, what we're doing here at Strangeworks is a deep tech effort, but I like to keep it like realistic about, like, this isn't going to happen anytime soon. And these aren't really computers now. They're more like lab equipment for exploring the quantum landscape and, all of these, kind of things. And I wish the press were just a little bit more on the Neuralink. It's fine to talk about the Jules Verne future of what it could be. I love that stuff. I'm the biggest sci-fi nerd on the planet. But I think there's a responsibility of media to be like, you know, but let's talk about the cool impact it could do now. Like, okay, it's pigs now, it's picking up signals. But if you can pick up signals and map to signals that weren't there or remap things or whatever, man, you can improve a lot of people's lives who just don't have a great quality of life. And I think that right there is exciting enough. Like we don't, we can talk about downloading karate and after that's been out for 5 years. You know what I mean? Like I think that right there is amazing enough. That's an incredible world-changing technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I think downloading karate, right, like this matrix thing, right? I actually don't see the benefit of that. You skills are
Hey,
skills have
you,
value because you work to get them.
the benefit is karate.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but I don't know. Flip of a switch, I find it like cheating. Like I would want to actually, if I'm gonna know karate, I want to learn it, right? I would be upset.
Look, I would totally download as much cool information in my brain as I could. I'm just like 100% I would. I'm not even a Singularity fan or fan, but and I would still, yeah, sign me up. Can I download the like for example, it's not karate you want. It's like relationship. It's like you want to download God and be like, I no longer argue with my wife because I'm now an encyclopedia of don't say dumb shit to your wife, right? That would be amazing. That's the reality is people are going to envision the karate. They're going to download the like how to apologize to your wife, how to put up with your dumb husband or whatever the case may be.
Honest, I still don't think there's enough computing power for that.
Be able to solve those interpersonal relationships. It's going to take a really, really powerful computer.
When I saw the chip that they put in your brain, I was like, what? Hell no, I'm not signing up. I mean, that looked crazy to me. It looks like a
Not the chip that should freak you out. It's the sewing machine going cheep, 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 put the little wires in your brain, which I thought was fascinating.
I mean, it is fascinating, but that's scary, man. That's scary to see. But it's also like, you see those old videos, obviously, right from I don't even know when computers were invented, but 20s, 30s, 40s, somewhere around there, right? And there's these big rooms and lights everywhere and flip and switch it, right? There's these massive rooms. It's a computer, and then the same computing power as I probably in the palm of a hand at this point.
So computers, depending if you go back to like the mechanical Turk or whatever, abacus or how far you went back, what you're talking about the ENIAC machine, right? There's a whole room of machines. And you're right. Now there's more power in your iPhone than they used to get to the moon, and we've said that now, by the way, for 10 years, which means it's way more. We need like a new example. We don't even have an example to contextualize it. Like it's more powerful than every computer on earth in the 70s or whatever, we need a new example.
That's interesting. Well, maybe the chip will be the same. Or I'm assuming, right? Of course, that's Mark 1, right, or whatever. So it's got to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But I worry about that. I worry about putting stuff in our body. That will be a new.
Look, I've been part of the biohacking team for a long time. Do I biohack myself? No. Or I should say not yet. But I've been looking at my choices when I started StrangeWorks. I was trying to figure out what my next startup. We're biohacking and quantum, right? Those were two of the choices and where I ended up at. And originally I had a different plan for StrangeWorks, and I was like, maybe I'm going to do another agency chaotic like thing in a different area. But then I just was like, look, it's my third one as a founder. I think it's my last one. We've got the Ecliptic Capital Fund up and running now, funding all these Texas entrepreneurs right now, and I'm still working worldwide, but really focused on Texas and the economy here and all of that. And, when I'm done with this, that's where I'm going to go. So I kind of wanted to say, I said, well, hang on, if I'm going to do this, it needs to be something very long-term and like that can really be big and really impactful. And we can, have a long runway with and some really difficult problems that are super challenging to think about. So definitely got that. Maybe more than we wanted. I kind of thought they'd be a little more real than a lot of people implied. But now it's getting there. I mean, you're going to see 150 plus qubit machine with good noise control probably in 2021. You're probably going to see a couple hundred. I mean, noise is the issue, right? Adding a qubit isn't hard. Adding a qubit without it creating so much static, think of it for your users, that you can't get an answer out of the system. That's the problem. So I think in the next 16, 24, 36 months, the noise control problem gets solved, or at least we find ways to do like error correction and stuff like that. When that happens and those two things happen, then I think you see the quantum computing thing like super take off. So I may be waiting a year for that, or I may be waiting 3 years for that. I think 3 years is probably on the more realistic side.
Wow. God, this is crazy. This is crazy. So this next century is just going to be insane for technology.
I think so. I mean, I mean quantum computing. I mean it. You know, the railroad in flight. You think back to the mainframe, we're going to have all the problems we've had with mainframe. So there's this one resource. We got to figure out now we have the internet. So getting to it makes it easier. But what about controlling who gets on it when, and job scheduling, and, you know, returns on investment calculations, and, you know, any delays, and getting answers between the classical infrastructure and the quantum. You know, there's all these problems that some of which we've seen to solve, and some of which we haven't. But the thing that, you know, that your viewers, right, your listeners should be thinking about with quantum computing is, you know, I gave that traveling salesperson example. The thing I always like to come back to that with and kind of put a little different context on it is quantum computing isn't about problems that we have now. It's not about solving those. It's about solving problems we don't even know we have, that we've never even dreamed of. And so, yeah, I see it as a demarcation point between kind of computing version 1.0 and computing version 2.0, where does that go? Nobody knows. But who has any idea?
Yeah.
Hopefully something wonderful.
That's crazy. And it also has to bring up, I know we're sort of running short on time. I do have a few topics I still want to bring up, but just real quickly on this one, then we'll move to something else. But do you think that, or this is a better way to ask it, how much does morality play into these decisions that are made for technology and moving forward in quantum computing? Right.
Well, that's the second book I'm going to pimp, not my book. But in 2018, I had the pleasure of meeting a gentleman in Japan named Tetsumo Matsumoto-san. And he was the chief strategy officer at SoftBank. Really brilliant thinker. Just loved the guy. And we became friends. And he told me of a new book that he was putting out. He gave me the opportunity to review it and give a little quote for the back. But speaking of morality, his book is called The Day AI Becomes God.
Oh.
And this book is all about the morality and the decisions we make. And, you know, chapter 2 is human, gods, and politics. Chapter 3 is everything that is human. And then there's a philosophy chapter and a path on how we build effectively. And I sent him a video the other day, and I didn't realize he'd never seen Captain Marvel. And, you know, obviously he's not a Marvel Comics guy. But I was like, so it's like the Kree. And he was, what? Well, like the Kree had the Supreme Intelligence, which is the AI that just told them how to run the world. And I sent him that video because I was like, that's basically exactly what you're describing in the book. But that's a question, right? Like the morality, it plays into everything is the short answer. You said really quick, it plays into everything, you know. But the fact is that, you know, when I heard about his book in 2018, I was like, so we get rid of politicians and everything's done by a machine that's like unbiased and all this stuff. If you could get there. I was like, yeah, interesting, not that interested. Then I see what's going on in the political arena and everything going on in the world today, and all these crazy theories that people believe, like the earth is flat and there's a secret guy in the government, and, you know, Hillary Clinton's a lizard person. By the way, there's pizza pedophile, right? And you just go on Reddit and you're just like, oh man, maybe we do need that AI to manage people quick. Maybe I'm changing my opinion on that, you know, because it's like, you know, it's just, there's just so much disinformation and so many people that they just need something to glom onto. And sometimes it's a really good thing, and they're going to go help make the planet a better place, or they're going to participate in the political process regardless of what side they're on. And sometimes it's like, we have to get guns because a secret spirit told me that the president is Jesus, and also you know, we have to fight an incoming dude, you know. And it spread this conspiracy stuff brings a question of morality into the role technology is playing in spreading absolute bullshit. Like, I love my mom, but my mom the other day said she's afraid if Trump doesn't win the election, we lose the country. And so when I get people that say that, I say, and by the way, I would say the same thing to somebody if it was Obama, and he said, if he doesn't get a third term, you know what I mean? And my question is, who do do we lose it to? How do we lose it? Why do we lose it? How long does it take to lose? I have so many questions about how there's going to be an election and all of a sudden everything is shit. It's like things aren't really that great right now. And I can't think of one election. I think Ronald Reagan said it best. In the 1984 debates, he said it's not a question of left or right. It's a question of up or down. Do we want to raise everybody up as a country, or do we want to fall into an abyss? And it's like, yeah, that's a little bit more where my head is on all this. But yeah, the morality, sorry, we can go over. I have the time for you, but it's like, you ask a question, it's a hot one for me right now, because when I think of morality, I think of, the internet wasn't intended for spam mail. Didn't have a lot of security, right? Because they thought nobody's going to do that. But that's what people did. And the internet also wasn't like, I'm going to be the largest conspiracy theory engine of complete bullshit on the face of the earth. But you know what? You give people the ability to publish a blog. And now with like Fiverr, they get a graphic artist in India to call it, the WhurleyNews.com or whatever. And people are like, well, I read on Whurley News that it's actually not lizard people, it's serpent people. And they listen to snake jacks. That's for all the Rick and Morty fans out there. But I mean, but that's the thing. It's like, morality plays it. We sometimes, as creators and inventors and scientists, spend so much time worried about if we can do something, we never stop to think if we should.
Yeah.
Or the implications. I have a rule in all my startups, especially the ones like Honest Knowledge that was affecting people's lives and savings, or StrangeWorks, where who knows, this could be the new nuclear arms race, right, with a quantum computer. And that is, I always like to look at unintended consequences. Unintended consequences aren't bad things that could happen. They're things that will for sure happen by a decision you made, right? You know what I mean? And so we try to keep that in mind, and we try to really focus on how what are we building, how can it be abused, things like that. And you can only do so much of that thinking. You have a job, you have stuff to do, but still it's thinking that needs to happen.
I love hearing that. That's important to me, and not being in that industry, right?
You can tell your producers, you'd be like, I remember specifically on this part saying short, and then it wasn't. Whurley did not give a. He's I'm a card-carrying member of AARP now, right? I'm a senior citizen, so I don't have any fucks left to give, man. So I'm all out. I checked the fuck bank. It's at zero.
Look, people are used to this podcast. They're used to that. That's no problem. This is great. We want answers, right? No matter how they come, we want answers. But again, my thing is that's actually makes me feel very good to hear that the industry is thinking about those things, that it's important. Like you said, right? I feel like that's from a line from Jurassic Park where they said, we didn't think about what we could do, or right, or
it's a famous line from before. But yes, Jeff Goldblum also said something almost identical in Jurassic Park.
This is where my quotes come from, bro.
Yeah, he said
movie.
They spent so much time. He did that thing. He's got his own like William Shatner.
But it is good to hear that the why is being asked in technology. I think that's important for people that are creating things and doing things. The why. I don't
think everybody's asking. I think in general people are asking a lot more than they did 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, nothing's perfect, obviously. So I understand that there's going to be people that don't take that. And then, we don't have time to get into it, but the bigger question, even on top of that, is who decides the morality of,
I mean, that's a question we are not going to answer in a million podcasts, right? I mean, this is insane. Because you find that Silicon Valley is primarily white, and you look at some of the AI work that's done, and it's that way. China's building an AI. Guess what? It has some really interesting opinions on law and Hong Kong and a lot of stuff.
But that's what I mean, right? You just, okay. Who decides that morality? I mean, I'm from tech, right? We live here in Texas, right? It's like the Bible Belt. So you're sort of used to having a lot of morality around you or pushed on you, or what the idea of it is. But anyway, this is something I do want to ask you before we go. I know it's kind of off topic. Not really. This is in your realm. I feel like I guarantee you have had this conversation a million times with your friends, no doubt. Time travel.
Yeah.
Is quantum? Does that help it? Is that like, oh yeah, okay?
The only look, I loved Avengers. I I love the in game when he was like, Tony Stark tells Ant-Man, he's like, are you telling me your whole plan is Back to the Future? Because that would be bullshit. Because he's like, no, it's yeah, it's Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
But have you ever seen the show Fringe?
Yes. Oh man. Wow.
If you remember the observers, you remember the guy said, look, here's this straw of water. It's coming in this side. It's pouring out that. That's how we think of time. It's like flowing. He said, and this is how the observers view time. It's like everything in the beginning and the end is all at one moment. And depending on what meditations do and what you believe in, some people believe that getting your chakras aligned and meditating stuff, you're able to get little tidbits from the future, right, to help guide your life. And so, time travel. Look, I time travel every day. I've literally traveled through almost an hour with you here, but I can only go forward. It's fascinating. I mean, you get into the many worlds theory. You get into maybe every time we make a decision, it's branching off, and maybe you time travel, you create other. Who knows? It's a great topic of sci-fi. I think it's a really dangerous thing. I'm trying to think of there was some show that I saw that it was like a Rick and Morty Futurama or something. I can't remember, but it had you could time travel for fun. Maybe it was like or something. You get to the agency. Maybe it was Futurama, I think. You go to the agency and you're like, I'd like to go see, the whatever Olympics or the whatever. And they're like, oh, they zap you back. But there's so much theory that's so fascinating. And I just wonder, I wonder about time travel all the time. Every time I say something dumb to my wife, I'm like, now's when, and like that remote control that I'm saying, maybe just like, we're just going to rewind 2 minutes. And I'm going to say, yes, ma'am. That sounds like a great idea.
But do you think it's possible? Do you?
It's possible. I think it's possible potentially to go forward. I don't know if it's possible to go backwards, but that's based on, that is beyond speculative. That's just based on some of the things I've read and some of this different stuff. I don't know that there's a way to go backwards. I'm kind of curious as if there's a way to go forward. Also, do I want to go forward? What about time travel and then nothing? If we got hit by a big meteorite, there's nothing there. The question is like,
good point.
The other question is returning. How do you return? Like, I totally get that you might be able to go somewhere, but if you can't go backwards, you can only go forward. Then it's a one-way ticket you bought.
That's true.
Even then, even if you could go anywhere, it seems like you could really not stick the landing on the return. That's all I'm saying. You could throw things into some pretty big chaos. But no, time travel is super fascinating. I'm not an expert on it. I would love to do it. I would go into space time travel, do it in a heartbeat. Is it possible? From what I've read, from what I've ascertained, there's potential to go forward. I don't know that you can go backwards, and then, maybe that's even like a lot of physics and stuff. And all due respect to my current physicist and everybody out there, there's a lot of science that is more, it should be science fiction in the universities sometimes because it's a little more fiction than it is actual science, right? But that's how we got to where we're at, right? Einstein and Irving, Schrodinger, and everybody, they pontificate and they postulate things, and then we try to test them and see. That's the whole wonderful process. So maybe there's a group out there doing it with time travel, or maybe everybody should go see Tenet only in theaters.
That's why I bring
at Tenet. That's how they paid me my I didn't get paid by them. I was gonna make up on a mountain. It's like, it can't be worth much to go see Tenet. Coronavirus. That's how I got that. Bought another Dr. Pepper right there. No. I'm actually upset about that. The reason I bring that up is a good point. I'm actually mad at my team, and I'm happy to let them know on your show, because they rented the Alamo Draft House yesterday, and they went to do a little team bonding. They haven't seen each other in months, and they went to see Mad Max Fury Road. And I was like, yeah, I've got to focus on some stuff here. So the team goes, they come back, and they're like, man, I am so confused about that movie. And I was like, right, but it's like blowing up, explosion, music, crazy, lots of explosions. Like, what didn't you get? No, we saw Tenet. I was like, what? Oh, well, Mad Max didn't work in the projector. And the guy said, would you like to see Jurassic Park or Tenet? We'll play either one for you. And so they picked Tenet. I was like, that's the one movie I actually want to see right now because of the weird time travel. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but because of the plot, which is so interesting from a time travel perspective, that you're gonna battle somebody that's moving forward in time while you're moving backward in time, like catching the bullets and stuff. That whole concept's fascinating. But they said it was super confusing, so they'll go see it with me again. They're like, think they need to watch it a second time.
It's actually the reason I brought up the question was Tenet, because I saw the movie and yeah, they used time.
You see the movie already?
Yeah, I saw it.
Fuck you too.
I like.
Everybody's seen the movie but me. This is horrible.
You really need to see it. Like this is your type of you'll understand.
I'm super excited to see it. I've already told my wife, I'm like, do you want to see this? Because if not, I'll go by myself to see this. I want to see that movie.
It's great. The ideas are there and yeah, totally. It's a great movie. But that's definitely why I brought it up. And I saw Bill and Ted's Face the Music, right? So I just thought, well, let me ask somebody who could actually have a legit answer about this, right? Than just myself. I mean, there's the old interstellar time travel, right? Where depending on time, and that's like a different form of time travel. I mean, like back time travel.
Yeah, we know so little about so many things. Who knows what's possible? And that's what's great. We live in the greatest time to be alive. When I started messing around with tech, I used to cut the UPC codes out of cereal boxes and ship them off. And maybe 8 to 12 weeks later, I got like the first piece of something. And now, my 24-year-old can go on Amazon and set up a whole web servers and websites on Wix or whatever the hell. And then he's, ordered a computer and all the office supplies and everything. And oh, by the way, the delivery in Prime, so in 2 hours, it's like poof, company. And it's like, what an incredible time to be alive in, not just from that perspective, but because we are probably going to go to Mars in before you and I die. We are going to make all these discoveries in quantum. We're going to do this stuff. It's just an incredible time to be alive. I see everybody so upset about elections and this and that, and those are all important. They're all problems. But we don't often, look at all of the amazing things that are going on all around us every day. SpaceX, in 15 minutes, sent, 60 small satellites to space in a rocket and deployed them in 15 minutes. And then it came back and landed on a boat in the waves.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Why are people not more excited about that?
I'm blown away by that. I think people don't know to be excited, right? They just think, oh, well, I thought they've already been able to do that, right? So to them, maybe I'm guessing, right? Like, oh, what is it? What is that? I don't know.
Possibly, quite possibly.
I don't know, but I'm with you. I saw that video, and it's absolutely fascinating, and I can't wait for all of that to, move forward. The last thing we'll kind of end on. We'll do this a little quickly. But I spoke with Matt Mullenweg. I'm not sure if you know who he is.
I love him. Yes, I do. Yeah. I know Matt very well.
Oh, really? Okay, great. Yeah, we had an awesome conversation.
Automac's been one of my favorite companies to tell people about and model it after, because he went with the whole people live wherever and they just work. And he's been the remote king for, God, it's got to be more than 20 years now. It's got to be like a long time.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. He's absolutely fantastic.
Super nice. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Like you said, he was so nice. He gave me tips on camera stuff. We started talking about camera.
And he's also, he learns about everything he does. He's like just super, he's incredible dude.
But the reason I bring it up is that we had a short. Well, we talked about it, but open source and sort of what that means and why support it. And I've noticed reading through your stuff, and that's something you are into. So why? Just tell us a little bit. Why you're for that.
Because there's the ability, like the same reason we're building StrangeWorks, we're building out quantumcomputing.com as this kind of free sharing platform. It uses a lot of open source and people open source stuff on it. The reason open source is valuable, not only the way Matt does it, but the way we're doing it. And there's so many different variations of all of it, of your philosophy and your licensing. And even in open source, people don't get along, right? Like, Stallman thinks that, you should only use the GNU license, and there's the MIT license, and there's all these different things. But the reason it's important is because if you want to advance something further, more eyes does help. Now, there's an illusion in open source that I open source code and all of a sudden 1 million developers are working on it. And even when you look at WordPress, when you look at Ethan Gallstad at Nagios, even in the early days of Apache or something like CVS, see, these are projects where there's still a handful of people making all the real changes, but they're still informing the process. And then you have projects where there are 100,000 people donating to it, and these things accelerate the adoption of the technology. They accelerate the advancement because open source. And there's a million arguments for it. The argument I've used for like the last 10 years or so is that I finally came to is, yeah, you can argue about licenses or the benefit or all of these security, all of these things. The real benefit is unlikely discovery. That somebody else playing with my code will add a feature or do a thing that I would have never thought of that's super valuable to the users that now unlocks a whole other thing that brings another person. That whole unlikely discovery thing is where I think the untold amounts of benefit are there. And obviously code sharing is super important, especially something like quantum. There are companies patenting algorithms that think they're going to sell these algorithms in the App Store. I think they're going to end up all going out of business because they're going to come out of universities or places that are open source so everybody can share them and modify them and make their own. Because are you really going to license Goldman Sachs the same financial algorithm you license to JP Morgan that you license to Chase, or whoever? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think a lot of that is going to be open, and those cool discoveries are going to happen only in the open. So I think it's vitally important to the future of everything we're doing, given software has literally eaten the world.
100%. Yeah. Wow. That's great to hear. Yeah. Speaking from, right, the majority of society has no idea about that and what that means, but the impact on their lives, on my life, is enormous. So it's great to hear that that's the idea. I think of it like a chefs who wouldn't want to share recipes and tricks and technique, right? Like food would go nowhere. Food would get literally would just.
I mean, the more, when you lower the barriers to entry, when you make it more accessible, even in some cases when you democratize processes, which open source does very well, yeah, things advance further. And by the way, everybody worries used to worry in software, well, we've got a piece of a pie. It's like, open source makes a much, much bigger pie. You know what I mean? Like kind of a rising tide floats all boats. I mean,
yeah,
I can't think of one situation where open source isn't valuable. I mean, it would be very, very few.
Yeah.
If
Love that. I love that. I absolutely love that. I think that's great. It gives me hope for the future, right? Technology. I don't want it taken over because I know nothing about technology. So I guess we get a little scared about things, right, that we don't know about. So that's a fair assessment. Like AI.
What do you do with that fear? Your brain tries to fill it in, and that's where you get on the conspiracy theories.
That's true. I'm not a conspiracy guy. I
know, but it's like that. But that's even scarier. It's like, right. Wait, we're worried about the election process, and now you think there's lizard people coming for your children? Because that seems way like those are very different things.
I think those people are. I just don't even know what to say like that. Right? Like,
look, members of my family. It's members of your family, whether you know it or not. It's weird. There's so many people. Cool. You're just lucky if they talk about it, so you can be like, okay, hang on, pause 1 second, right? Because most of the time, people harbor those and they believe that, but they don't talk about it. They don't think about it.
100%. Look, I mean, I live in Texas, grew up in Texas. There's a lot of Looney Tunes here, and my
don't blame Texas. They're everywhere, worldwide.
They are everywhere. 100%. I definitely think the flat Earth is definitely one of those ones that I've heard recently, right, in the last few years or whatever, that has absolutely blows my mind and definitely makes me sad for humanity. For some people, just like what. Whoa, and the movement that it picked up, I can understand some people believing it, but it just blows my mind how some movements just take off. Yeah, crazy.
So take everything we've learned, and there's a firmament, right? So there's just like a dome over us. Totally doesn't make sense. But here's the thing: you ask the flat earthers, it's great. You go, right, but is the moon a sphere? Oh yeah. Jupiter? Oh, absolutely. So wait, so all these other planets are, but somehow we're completely different. And you just forget whether we can see the Earth or NASA's faking all the images. Yeah. Just be like, hang on, is the moon round? Absolutely it is. Okay, the sun? Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, so every other planet is round in the entire universe, the galaxy and everything, except for us. Yep. It's like, all right.
I mean, I've heard some, theories about that the space just doesn't even exist. Like it's all fake. just like, what?
Yeah.
I'm blown away.
You're pushing closer and closer to we're just living in a simulation. And
That's
this is
a different argument.
everything.
That's an argument I could have with some. I love that. I love that idea. I love that thought. And I've seen so many videos. I've heard so many people give explanations on the simulation theory. And I find it fascinating, to be honest with you. And I almost find it's impossible to disprove, in my opinion, or prove.
Right.
This is just impossible, but it's interesting to think about for sure. If we're in a simulation, what is your? We'll end on that. For instance, what is your thought?
I'm not
Is it real?
I have so many real world problems that I need to solve in my fake world that I'm just going to focus on those for now, and then I'll get to that later. If that's the case, it should be like the Matrix. Elon could be on Mars tomorrow. He just has to, there you go.
That's exactly it. Yeah. What a great answer to that question, by the way. That's a great answer.
A non-answer. Okay. But I don't have time to prove. And that poor guy died. This poor flat Earth guy. What's his name? The rocket guy.
He went up in the rocket, right?
With the steam rocket. And then guess what happened? The very predictable thing that would happen. So you built a homemade steam rocket that's going to launch you into the sky further than you can survive and fall. It's like, that was predictable. His life could have been saved if any of his friends would just be like, so here's the deal, man. You're not getting near 30,000 foot. I will buy out an entire, and I offered to do this for him, an entire Southwest flight. I'll buy it out. Just two of us on a plane. Let's go up to 30,000 foot, which is whatever, 3 times, twice as high as he was going. And you just bring a camera with you. Like, take whatever you want. It's totally safe. And they will, if you don't believe it, they will figure out how to go higher or whatever. But like, I just feel so bad because I feel like there's these passionate people who really get their head wrapped around a concept like that, and they just know it with all their heart. But everybody just is like, oh, you're a lunatic, instead of saying, hey, look, totally get that you want to explore this. And it's great. Here's some things you could do that are way better than what you're doing, that are super safe. And then maybe you still believe it, maybe you don't. Like, but there was no need for that man to die. And that to me.
So right. Yeah, very sad. Very sad.
We ended on a horrible, sad note. Everybody go and be depressed now.
Hey, there's still hope. Don't be that guy. That's it. Don't be that guy. It's that simple. Yeah.
No Eeyores.
Look, in a weird way, I respect the guy for willing to go up for his beliefs. And I know, but
even if there is your simulation line for the Matrix, right? I don't believe what you believe. It's like my belief system doesn't require that you do, right? And so it's good for them. They have all these crazy ideas. I mean, come on, some of these ideas are just
ludicrous. They're beyond ludicrous. They're beyond logical. They're beyond. I think a lot of them are faking that they actually believe it. I think they like the community that it brings you into, right?
Right? That guy's making tons of money on. The guy owns all the sites that he posts on. And by the way, posted as it's like, we all know who this is, right? Like,
yeah.
That's a trick of the deep state.
Yeah.
And as an agent of the deep state, I want to make sure that everyone just goes back to sleep.
Well, everyone knows this is the Q show. So
right. Yeah. There you go.
Right here, yeah, we reveal all the secrets. Well, look, this is how it is. This is one of the double-edged sword of YouTube and information that the internet has brought, is that some of these things can pop up that otherwise wouldn't have exist, and they grow because you're able to connect with people easier, and the movement can grow more. But also, good ideas can grow faster.
Ask every one of your listeners to do me a favor. Start a good conspiracy. Why are all conspiracies bad? Start a good one. There's a secret government group called the Deep State who is working tirelessly to make sure that we don't need money. It's like Gene Roddenberry Star Trek. We can all just work on playing the violin or whatever the fuck and have amazing, wonderful lives. Why are there any good conspiracies? Why is every conspiracy like lizard people are eating your babies? Why can't it be like lizard people know how to space travel and they're going to teach it to babies? Our future generations will know how to travel the stars. Like, why is there never a good? I think that's what I'm going to do from our talk. I'm going to go start a website that is totally fake, but it's only going to be good conspiracies.
That's a great idea.
The election is going to happen. Here's how I know. there's millions of people who are secretly planning on voting. Right? I mean, I don't know. So good conspiracies. I'd love to see good conspiracies.
I think that's great.
Every conspiracy is horrible. Why can't it be good?
You're right. That's hilarious. I've actually never heard that before. You're right. Good conspiracies. Why aren't people conspiring to make chocolate chip cookies and save the world? You know, like that happens.
You're putting so much energy into that. Why don't you just put a little energy into something nice happening? You're making it all up anyway. Everybody knows it. Just nobody wants to tell you.
Totally.
You're full of shit.
That's hilarious. Well, look, you know, they've already told us that UFOs are out, right? They've already let us know. So they've shown us the videos. I think they're about to desensitize and just let us know for once and for all that.
Why is it they've secretly been working since the Eisenhower administration to imprison the planet using DNA? Why can't it be like, hey, we don't need them because they're scared the fuck of us because they see we blow everything up, but they want to help us cure cancer. Look, but that could be the conspiracy. Aliens are secretly working with the government to cure cancer. Sounds kind of cool. You know,
sounds great.
Aliens are hiding from us in underground layers at the center of the earth, which conflicts with Hitler's underground layer. I just want to say, are they together? Is it like a cohabitation? I don't know what's going on with the whole inner earth, you know, Lord of the Rings realms. But, you know, why can't it be something just reasonable and good? It's always some batshit crazy thing that's evil. It's always evil.
Oh.
Somebody. And the reason that it is the psychology of your brain fills in gaps, right? The Van Roosdorf effect. It's why witnesses are unreliable. And it's an amazing thing that your brain does. When your brain has missing data, it makes up the data. And so you make up the data, and if you make it up and you put it on the internet, there's a bunch of people who believe, I also believe that made up data, and then poof, it catches on fire.
Just fire. Yeah. And again, I think a lot of people don't genuinely believe it. I think they just, again, it brings them into a group. They got friends now. We're talking, we're chatting. I think deep down, they probably don't believe it. They just, again, it brings them closer to a bunch of people, and we can share all these crazy ideas and piss off the liberals, right? Anything to piss off liberals is like.
Or the conservatives. Look, it's about, or the libertarians. Or you can just piss off whoever your other group is. And that's the problem with conspiracy theories is everybody has another group.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I hope you're right on your UFO thing. I hope that they land. I hope they do a big announcement. And I hope they have like 40 arms and like 36 eyes on a square head or whatever, because then everybody on the planet, it's like, you're this religion, you're this politics, you're that, you're this, you're gay, you're straight, you're whatever. All of those people, I guarantee you would all of a sudden be like, holy shit, all of a sudden we look at like, you're black and you're Hispanic and I'm white, but we don't have a square head with 36 eyes. Right? I mean, like and that's the problem is we would discover aliens, we'd immediately make them, we'd be like them. It's that we love them and us as a species. And it's so sad. Why can't you just be happy for other people's success? So sad.
That's you're asking a lot there.
I know. Oh.
That's asking a lot. Well, what we can do is worry about ourselves and what we control and the people around us, right? And hopefully that sticks and pushes off to other people.
Well, cool, man. Well, look, I really appreciate you having me. I know we spent a long time here, but awesome being able to. I'm glad we got it on schedule and we're able to do it. And I'd love to come and do a meal at some point in the future in person, and maybe take some of the stuff we talked about. We'll dive deep on it. Maybe we get a little group together or something of Austin futurist crazy people. I don't know, but let me know. I'd love to see you again.
Absolutely, man. It would definitely do. We'll definitely have a meal. That's a great idea. 100%. So, So again, I might have lost you there. Did I lose you? Maybe I did. Yep, I did. Well, that was Mr. Whurley. We just lost him there, but that's okay. There he is. He jumped back in. We'll just say hello to him real quick. Oh, shit.
Now you can hear me. I said, and I'm done, motherfucker. I'm out. Poof. That was totally my fault. I have this Stream Deck here with all these shortcuts, and I was fidgeting it, and I hit the in the Zoom meeting shortcut. That was horrible timing. Thank you for still being here when I tried to come back.
You know what? It's apropos, man. This whole everything has just been completely apropos. So, but again, man, thank you so much. I know you got a lot of shit to do going on. We'll absolutely contact with you. We'll set something else up again, and we'll do a meal in person. 100%. Love the group idea. Would love to talk more stuff. So, but again, man, I know you got a bunch of stuff to do. So, thank you so much for this time. This has been absolutely amazing. I can't wait for this episode to come out. It's going to be awesome.
Well, thank you so much. Let me know when it comes out. I'll do my best to promote it to all 26 of my followers. I can guarantee you
4 more than I got.
12, 13 hits. Well, thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later.
Absolutely, brother. All right, be good, boss. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
The Lone Star Plate podcast is produced by Texas Real Food. Go to texasrealfood.com and you can search your city for stores, butchers, restaurants, farmers markets, and more who are using fresh, artisanal, organic sources. It's a fun site that brings all natural options all together. I hope you enjoyed this episode. For more information, go to thelonestarplate.com. I'm your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. Until next time.